Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Apologies for yesterday, we got a bit backed up, so there was no podcast, I'm afraid. Let me start with some macro thoughts. Internet retailers, this is according to Zero Hedge, 0% first non-growth print in years. That was from retail sales data, which was released yesterday in the US, which is an interesting development. Home thoughts, O youth, youth, you go your way, heedless, uncaring, as if you owned all the treasures of the world. Even grief elates you, even sorrow sits well upon your brow. You are self-confident and insolent, and you say, I alone am alive, behold. Even while your own days fly past and vanish without trace and without number, and everything within you melts away like wax in the sun, like snow, and perhaps the whole secret of your enchantment lies not, indeed, in your power to do whatever you may will, but in your power to think that there is nothing you will not do. It is this that you scatter to the winds, gifts which you could never have used to any other purpose. Each of us feels most deeply convinced that he has been too prodigal of his gifts, that he has a right to cry, "Oh, what could I not have done if only I had not wasted my time?" Ivan Turgenev, First Love. This is a photograph of Ivan Turgenev, and a Getty Images, lovely photograph in praise of flying solo on Valentine's Day. Returning to Turgenev, I burned as in a fire in her presence. But what did I care to know what the fire was in which I burned and melted? It was enough that it was sweet to burn melt. Tell someone Happy Valentine's Day straight from the heart with this visceral gif by Al Boardman. That's from the Saatchi Gallery. You'll have to click on it to see it. Why Madagascar should be on your bucket list trip this year. It's said that when King Solomon wanted to build his temple, he sent his best carpenters to scour the earth in search of its finest timber. They eventually made it to Madagascar, where they felled majestic trunks of sweet-smelling rosewood to bring to the Holy Land. A few of the men fell under the spell of the island's beauty and chose to remain. To this day, some Malagasy claim distant Jewish ancestry. Whether you take the tale as a fable or accept it at face value, the so-called Eighth Continent is still likely to hold an unsuspecting traveller in its grip. Most visitors come to see its population of skyward lemurs. Madagascar has roughly 100 species, and they're found nowhere else. Others are eager to experience the Jurassic-looking jungles where nighttime wildlife tours reveal prehistoric creatures such as the spiral-tailed panther chameleon, or the avenue of the baobabs, a forest of skyscraper-tall trees that look as if they've been uprooted and flipped upside down. It seems like a wonderful place to visit, particularly the photograph of that residence. And I like this photograph of a bear by Pep Villamala. Political reflections, well. The end of an era, says Zapiro about Zuma resigns. The Jacob Zuma era comes to an abrupt end. Listen to his final comments via Bloomberg video. We'll meet somewhere, Zuma's final words as he exits the press conference, which he kept everyone waiting for quite a while. So what happens now? South Africa's new president, Cyril Ramaphosa, is expected to be sworn in today. Well, that's the plan. Then have a look at this, Zapiro's cartoon, which was from 24 hours ago. on what writing, what wall Zuma must go. But he has gone now. I asked on the 18th of December, will it be 1994 all over again? There's reasons for optimism. The Rand is optimistic, the stock market's optimistic. We might have some buy the rumour, sell the fact trading today, so it might be an opportunity to get in again. Ajay Gupta, who was spotted outside the family's Optimum coal mine in Mpumalanga last week, has been taken in for questioning. South African police raided the Gupta family compound in Johannesburg. This is the way they turned the heat up on President Zuma. This is a crime scene. Rifle-toting police officer outside the Gupta house tells me words South Africa has waited many years to hear, says Edward Cropley. 18th of December again, I wrote, South African President Zuma has laughed and that his chuckle should be trademarked in the face of his adversaries like a political sorcerer. The markets on the 14th of December, this was 2015, I said the markets are not interested in Zuma's explanations. They are seeing a South African president who has gone rogue. And then I take you back to November 2014, when I was writing about Ouagadougou. We've seen the demise of Mugabe, we've seen Zuma ousted, we've seen Dos Santos is gone. In West Africa, we've had many changes. And in 2014, I was saying what's clear is that a very connected African youth demographic is set to alter the existing equilibrium between the rulers and the subjects, and a rebalancing has begun. And I think, you know, it's never linear in Africa, but you can see that we're seeing quite significant movements here from a political point of view. Ethiopia as well, I'll get to in a minute. America has given its tacit blessing to President Moon to accept a bold invitation from Kim Jong-un to a Pyongyang summit. This was reported in the Telegraph. I remind you what Kim Yo-jong said. She said, I wish I could see you in Pyongyang at an early date. I hope the president will put a footprint in history that will be long remembered by the future generation by playing a leading role in opening a new era of unification. Kim Yo-jong, I wrote, cuts through the noise, a supreme example of soft power, you know, forget the repugnance of the regime. She was, the deployment of the sister was very clever, I must say. ISS today is asking, is Ellen Johnson Sirleaf a worthy Ibrahim Prize winner? Lots of skepticism, particularly at home, about her performance. As Foreign Policy reported, so disliked is she that on the eve of Liberia's October the 10th general election, her own Vice President Joseph Boakai, who was vying with 19 other candidates to succeed her, tried to distance himself from Sirleaf on the campaign trail. If you park a race car in the garage for 12 years, it gets rusty, he said. We live in remarkable times. This is Michael P. Deacon, which is referencing something that I referenced, which was Boris Johnson yesterday. I listened to him, and he was talking about how the UK can now grow its own carrots without interference from Europe, and this was a major step forward. This, I noticed, the captain aided, my school is being shot up and I am locked inside. I'm scared right now. It's just appalling in the US. And I saw Sebastian Gorka trying to justify, you know, gun ownership in this kind of environment. I prefer this, J. Arthur 47, on target. Look at the cartoon. International markets, we had a US inflation surprise. Take a look at this from Holger. And we had quite an extraordinary day of trading in the markets yesterday. We saw a huge move up in the dollar, and that was entirely reversed later on. Traders are still pricing in a 100% chance of a March Fed rate hike, which is interesting. So let's keep an eye on that. The big mover has been dollar-yen of late. From our perspective, the current situation doesn't warrant special intervention. The yen isn't rising or falling abruptly. This is ASO. ASO's comments confirm that the yen's level and its move are making him very nervous for now. Still, a strong yen probably isn't going to be temporary. Japanese officials will have to keep watching the yen closely. If it goes above 100, that will be a critical point, and it's likely to trigger a stronger step by then. And if you look at the chart, it actually, at this kind of level, below 106.40, there's a huge gap down. This is a dollar-yen chart from Pace Charting. You can see what I'm talking about. It's been a dramatic and dynamic strengthening in the yen. And then this is another chart from David Inglis, who says it's making me nervous. There's almost nothing below this recent retracement level it just broke. So that's been a very, very big move there. Let's have a look at the currency markets. Euro dollar 124.55, dollar index 88.89, dollar yen 106.55, Swiss franc 0.9271, the pound 14007, Australian dollar, which was another interesting trade yesterday. It sold off bigly and then bounced bigly, 0.7932. Indian rupee 63.955, South Korean won 1071.60. Excuse me, the Rial 321.76, Egyptian pound 17.7090. They sold a lot of Eurobonds lately. FX reserves are at the highest for quite a while. And the Rand last trading at 11.7248. Dollar index, I've just written in brackets, oh dear. Euro dollar all over the place yesterday, but now where are we? We're at 124.58 trading. We've still got to get above 125.60 in my opinion. Mind the gap, and this is the interesting point that keeps growing. Euro rally continues despite 10-year US-German yield spread widening to 215 basis points, the most since March 2017, following the US CPI beat. The markets are wild and Credit Suisse is loving it, although they reported a loss for the third year in a row. Reasons for optimism. Revenue from markets rebounded by more than 10% in the first 6 weeks of the year, offering the strongest evidence yet that recent resurgence in volatility could lift investment banks out of a trading slump. I worked for Credit Suisse for many years. Gold rose almost $24 or 1.8%, the most since May after the inflation surprise to the upside. That's from Holger. Gold, as I put in brackets, boom, last trading. Let's have a look at that as well. 13.54 last. Crude oil surged a further 0.8% in after-hours trading to top $61. Last trading at $61.20 in New York, and that was after jumping the most this year in the trading session yesterday. So we'll come back, but look at this chart, the 6-month chart. You'll see we've still got further to go to recover where we were at the beginning of the year when markets were very bullish. Sunset in Al-Awa of southern Iraq. This is on the Silk Road. Rest in peace, Morgan Tsvangirai. I like this photograph of him on his way to vote in parliamentary elections in June 2000. And you have to give him credit for really battling Mugabe all those years. Mass protests force Ethiopia to free opposition leader. Talk and chatter from on the ground has been of a tipping point moment in Ethiopia. Ethiopia has released a senior opposition leader from prison, dropped all charges against him after demonstrators blocked roads and staged protest rallies in several towns. Bekele Gerba, Secretary General of the Oroma Federalist Congress, was arrested in December 2015 after mass protests broke out in the Oromia region over accusations that farmers were being forced to sell land with scant compensation. He was held initially on terrorism charges, later reduced to incitement to violence. He just walked out of prison. We have confirmed that all charges against him have been dropped. Now, I was talking about this in October 2016 when I said the government need to change tack, effect a course correction, and history shows us that this course correction is one of the most difficult things to pull off. And on that note, look at this, joy and celebration in Ethiopia replaces the silent shutdown of Monday's boycott. And saying hopefully today will serve as a cornerstone for reforms that these folks have all sacrificed for. David Yarrow portraiture is about capturing the eyes. The warriors were hollow. It was as if he had seen so much that there was little left in his soul to give. Sanctions, DRC Congo, written question 126713. UK has frozen £580 million of DRC assets under EU sanctions. That's a big number. DRC, no December election without voting machines. That's the DR Congo poll chief. Angola appoints Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank and ICBC to lead a $2 billion Eurobond issue. And I was talking about this on the 5th of February when I was talking about the NB spread being at 258 basis points, the tightest since mid-2014. And I was asking how long this lasts is anybody's guess. I said emerging and frontier market borrowers surely need to get their skates on and pull the trigger real quick on any borrowing they had been considering for this year. We've now seen Kenya go on a roadshow. Angola announced that they're selling bonds. Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, so at least they're heeding my advice. South African all shares down 3.54% this year, that's a big buy. The Rand has rallied substantially. Last time I checked was at 1172.48, and this was after the ANC's parliamentary caucus said it would support a motion of no confidence, and then subsequently we got the resignation. Rallied to its highest level since February 2015 as South African President Jacob Zuma agreed to step down. This is a 6-month dollar rand chart. I'm expecting a move to 11 and then to 10. Nigerian all shares up 10.27% so far this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is the outlier. It's up 27.93% so far this year. Uganda cuts its benchmark lending rate to its lowest level ever to nudge the private sector credit growth. Policymakers cut the rate by 50 basis points to 9%, the lowest level since the country began setting rates as part of an inflation-targeting monetary policy in 2011. Sudan says the border with the south was open for the first time post the succession. Opened a border point for trade with South Sudan for the first time since southern independence in 2011, a step that could ease economic troubles in both African nations. De La Rue tweeted, "We're honored to host a visit this week from key government, business and investment leaders at our site in Nairobi." I was a part of that group who went to have a look, and I said, thank you for the visit. I was particularly struck by the quantum of the investment, the quality of the facility, and most of all, the passion of nearly 300 staff. Nairobi all shares up 4.53% so far this year. NSE 20 is up 0.13% this year. I attended a conference at the Kenya Monetary School yesterday. Dr. Joroge was a keynote speaker. He's the central bank governor. He said the US fiscal deficit, things can happen in the US which can affect us here. In my mind, the single biggest risk is cybersecurity. Liquidity and governance are the biggest risks in the banking sector. He said, people, not systems. 80% of issues in the banking sector can be pinned on insiders. So quite an interesting speech he gave there. And then we had a lady from the Federal Reserve of Philadelphia talking about risk from an operational perspective. The only stimulus package required is for the governments, national and counties, to pay their bills. Nothing more, nothing less, said NIC Bank's John Gachora, who's also a Credit Suisse alumni. The economy is very slow, bank customers are suffering, SMEs are closing in large numbers and jobs are being lost. We need a stimulus package, he said. But not in the old sense of the word. We need debts to be repaid. Kenya Airways issued an investor briefing update. They've delayed it. If you're interested in the share price data, that link is on the website. If you got roses yesterday, they probably came from Kenya. This is an article in the CNN, and it's pretty interesting as well. Lots of data. Do click on that link. And finally, thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful. We live in interesting times, that's for sure.